This is Christopher John Bjerknes. It is January 7th, 2024. I am honored and privileged to have my friend Richard Willett. We're going to do a really banger interview today. He's been deep diving into the Epstein blackmail pedophile ring. He's been interviewing Juliet Bryant and really coming out with blockbuster material. He has wonderful insights into what's going on here. He exposed the fact that there may well be tunnels under the New Mexico Ranch and under Epstein Island. He tied in the monarch butterfly images that he's found in the Epstein victims and their related materials to MK Ultra, and the idea that monarch butterflies, when they migrate, pass along genetic memories to the next generation, and this is used in MK Ultra programming. And he had a really wonderful insight that really sparked my imagination. He tied all this into Lilith, metamorphosizing into a blue butterfly, and I've done a couple videos on how that relates to Shekhinah and the color blue, and we're going to get into all that. And very importantly, he has been researching the related areas around Epstein Island and the ranch in New Mexico, and how they tie in with tunnels and military bases and submarine bases, all kinds of really fascinating stuff. So I want everyone to welcome my guest, Richard Willett. He is a wonderful investigative journalist, a film producer, and filmmaker. He's extremely talented, far better than anything I can do. So, Rich, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you have been uncovering in your investigations into Epstein's pedophile ring?
Well, thank you for that lovely introduction. And as I say, it's an honor and a pleasure to be on your show. I mean, I first interviewed a couple, I think about 3 or 4 months ago, and we've done a couple of shows. But the more and more we chat, the more and more we dig into this, it's incredible how far we go. And I've been speaking to people who just look into the politics of it and trying to bridge the gap between the politics of the world and this, and research like yours. And one kind of sits in somewhere in the middle there somehow. So I've been looking into the Epstein stuff, obviously it wasn't the list, it was a disposition released with a few extra names on it. Nothing really that we didn't know in it already. But what it got me looking into was, okay, there's a film that came out recently called Don't Look Up, and it was DiCaprio, I believe, in its own fantastic film. But if we look, I believe that that's kind of a great way to understand this, because it's not on the flight logs we should be looking at, in my opinion. That's a decoy. The flight logs looking up in the sky, it's not that. You've got Ghislaine Maxwell with a submarine license. You've got a submarine port on the island, on Epstein Island. You've also got a submarine port nearby on some other islands that link back to the Bidens through James, I think it's Joe Biden's brother, and we'll cover that. So, like, not to say that anything's going on, but these are things that we should be looking at. This is not, they'll give you the flight logs. I believe that this is an underground thing that we really need to be looking at, and that's what I've been looking into.
Did she keep a submarine harbored by the island? And are there any records of visitors on that submarine? Was it used to shuttle goods? Was it used to shuttle people? Could it have been transporting weapons or spies or funds, things like that? Secret documents?
There was definitely a submarine there. I don't know how long and all the time, but it seems to be it was there fairly regularly. The only person I've seen on there was Stephen Hawking. Was actually on the submarine. There is a picture of him in the submarine, not on it. You don't want to go on a submarine; it'd be pointless. So Stephen Hawking, I know, was in the submarine. Other than that, it's just something that's new and we need to be looking into. So I will be investigating that even more. But to me, that seems like that's the way people were coming and going on the island. There are a fair number, I think 3 that I found, submarine trips, companies that take excursions on submarines just off a nearby island. So it's a regular thing around there. and these nearby islands, I believe, need to be at least looked into, one specifically.
It's incredible, but this ties in exactly to the Kabbalistic legends of Lilith. And my theory is that Jeffrey Epstein was playing the Kabbalistic role of Samael, and he was trying to seed the earth with his DNA in exactly the same way that Samael created the seed line of the Gentiles by impregnating Eve. So he was mimicking that role. And in terms of the submarine, we have some very interesting lore with Lilith. And you can see that Jeffrey Epstein hoped to seed the human race with his DNA. He wanted to breed with Gentile women and impregnate them in the exact same way that Samael impregnated Eve to create Cain and to create the Gentile race. And Lilith was the first wife, as you also have pointed out, of Adam. And they were both made out of the same clay. And she resented the idea that when they would sleep together, he would always be on top. And she was the first feminist, which is why she's the champion of the satanic feminist movement that began in the 19th century. So she rejected Adam and divorced him. And the Jewish legends are that she fled. And guess where she fled to? She fled to the sea. And God, to punish her for divorcing Adam, would slay 100 of her children every day. And she would manufacture her children as demons by luring in men in their dreams and seducing them, and then taking their nocturnal emissions and breeding demons, which is, in a way, what this whole transhumanist movement is all about. So she fled to the sea, and there were threats that she would be drowned in the sea. And there is a legend that was published in the alphabet of Ben Sira. Is all this appearing on the screen?
No.
It's not. I'm sorry. Let me.
Okay.
Sorry. Here we go.
There you go.
Alphabet of Ben Sira. So we have the demon Lilith, who was in the Garden of Eden and who slept with Eve to produce the child Cain. You can see her portrayed on the Sistine Chapel by Michelangelo. And this legend, the alphabet of Ben Sira, incorporates the idea that said the Holy One to Adam, if she agrees to come back, what is made good. If not, she must permit 100 of her children to die every day. The angels left God and pursued Lilith, whom they overtook in the midst of the sea, in the mighty waters wherein Egyptians were destined to drown. They told her God's word, but she did not wish to return. The angels said, "We shall drown you in the sea." So it's kind of humorous that she could avoid being drowned by having her submarine, and that all of this would be incorporated into this scheme to breed these demons. And I think the whole Epstein pedophile ring follows this model of seducing men with these Lilith females that you showed bear the blue monarch butterfly of the Lilith demon. And part of what Epstein was up to was the transhumanist agenda. He was funding and financing it. And I think one of the ways that they want to breed these demons is to create transhumans as this set of demons. And this ties into those tunnels you've been exploring. I'm just going to hit this briefly, and then we'll get back to what you have been researching. Underneath the Wailing Wall, where we see all our politicians go to put in their prayers in the wall and to don the kippah, the yarmulke, there are tunnels, and there's a whole tunnel network that goes right under Al-Aqsa Mosque and under the Dome of the Rock. And Jerusalem is filled with these underground tunnel networks. And I'm wondering, you have said that there's a great likelihood that there are tunnels under Epstein Island and under the ranch. And I'm wondering where that information comes from and if you've been able to validate it in any way.
Yeah, so the first part of that, the first image that I've got, so this is a quote from Juliet Bryant.
Do you want me to show your
if you could, number one.
Slides.
The first slide is, and I'll go through the Zorro Ranch stuff and the New Mexico stuff. So the first one this is a quote from Juliet Bryant from an interview, the first interview I did with her, which you can see on iconic.com in full. And I think we'll be putting this out next week for free because the follow-up interview is just as mind-blowing. So this is Juliet Bryant. She was a victim or survivor of Epstein. So she says, I'm going to put it out there right now. I woke up on a laboratory table, paralyzed and naked on the table. I would like to be lie detected about this. These people were doing something and they don't want anyone to know about it. This is at Zorro Ranch. So this is not on the island. The island, you can clearly see there was a guy called Luke Rudkowski who went across there, and you can see Luke, there he is, Luke there, and that to me is they're either just tunnels or that's where it goes down into the submarine port, or it could be both. I think there's also tunnels underneath the kind of what you've pointed out to be like the flat earth kind of cube. So that's, I mean, she's talking about she woke up paralyzed on a laboratory table. Now, this isn't the first time I've heard of this as well. So this harks back to some of the people talking about what happened at Dulles Base as well, and some other bases. So, and they're all in New Mexico. So the second one I want to go to is to show you, look how close Zorro Ranch is to Dulles Base. Now, if people don't understand or don't know about Dulles Base, look at Phil Schneider and go and look at his stuff. This is from the 70s and 80s, early 90s. The guy was talking about working there in the late 70s. That's 168 miles by car. So 3 hours by car. It's not that far, but imagine how quick it is by plane. That's Dulles Base. So underneath Dulles Base, Phil Schneider said he helped build that with some other people. At one point, they ended up having a kind of like a standoff or a fight with some grey aliens that they met down there, and he had some of his fingers blown off, unfortunately. And this has been years, people saying, oh, it's nonsense. But look how close they are. That's Zorro Ranch, and that's Dulles Base. There's a reason why there's tunnels under these places. So I believe that she did wake up underneath the tunnels on Zorro Ranch, and she woke up paralyzed on a table, and she remembers it vividly. This is coming from an Epstein victim. She's one of the ones. She's the lady who put the blue butterfly of Lilith on her diary, but she said that she put it on there before that she met these guys. So that's interesting in of itself. So, and she didn't seem, when I spoke to her, and I speak to her regularly, to know what it meant. She thought it was another god. I can't remember what the name of that other god is now. That'll come back to me. Psyche. But to me, it's Lilith, and she's kind of accepted that that's possibly what it is. So it's really interesting.
It fits Lilith so perfectly because Lilith is a succubus who seduces men. And that's precisely what this is all about, the seduction of men, as you said, for political purposes, to be able to blackmail them through pedophilia. And these women that they recruited is the wrong word. They essentially kidnapped them and brainwashed them. These women then became this seductive Lilith force to draw in these men. And then through this way, they would actually convert these men into demons who would carry out their demonic political agenda. So it fits exactly with the Kabbalistic demonology and mythology.
The compromat as well. Yes, exactly. I mean, Zorro Ranch is also near 111 miles from Trinity, the Manhattan Project, Obviously, anyone knows about the Manhattan Project will know that that's where the atomic bomb went off. So that's only 111 miles away from there. Why are they always there? And also, coming back to what she said when she was at
Wasn't there
Zorro
a
Ranch.
governor of New Mexico that owned land in that area or something like that?
I'll have a look into
I
that.
seem to
But I
recall.
wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. It all comes back. Obviously, we had the Roswell crash in New Mexico. But she did say that she saw a UFO when she was at Zorro Ranch. She said she saw one when she was standing outside. I mean, this all fits in. This is without me prompting her. This information from that interview came out way before I knew any of this. It's been out for about 3 or 4 months now. So this is stuff I've looked into since, and it all just connects so well. But one thing I found, and I'm sure you'll find this as fascinating as me, Christopher, is that the Church of Scientology have a base only 80 miles away called a Trementina base. Now, this base is owned by Scientology and is part of their elite cult. Within the cult, it's called the Church of Spiritual Technology. And I think we've got number 3. You go to number 3 and it will show you how far away this is. Yes, so we travel inside from one abusive church to another. A little over 80 miles from Zorro Ranch is Trementina Base, a bunker and vault complex owned by the Church of Spiritual Technology, an elite order within Scientology, with hardened rooms storing L. Ron Hubbard's writings. And I remember this being spoken about, actually, in a documentary I watched ages ago. Hubbard's thoughts on Thetinas will survive anything, and they're reportedly inscribed on etched steel plates in titanium containers filled with the inert argon gas. The location is hardly secret, since the CTS logo, which you can see 2 round circles, if you look at it and Google it, is quite clearly embedded into the sand itself, or the rounds, the lands around it. So it's 2 interlocking circles with diamonds, can be seen in aerial photos, carved into the desert scrubs, ostensibly to help guide Hubbard's spirit back to its new body. So that's the resurrection. That's them giving him a second life. So maybe this is something to do with the Messiah, or playing that part of the Antichrist, whenever that happens. So once Hubbard adopts a new body, again, transhumanism, he's expected to make his way to one of those CST bases. I mean, come on. This is 80 miles away from Zorro Ranch, where Juliet Bright claims to have woken up on a laboratory table. I think the same as you. It's transhumanism, and they're using these females' eggs. Exactly what I feel is happening.
I suspect that's exactly what's going on. Michael Collins Piper did a lot of research into Scientology and possible connections to Mossad and all that. That's something that people may want to go back and look at some of what Michael Collins Piper wrote and said about all of that. It's really quite interesting that this locus of these things all forms a confluence right around this central base, as you've shown in your maps.
Yeah, it's insane. It's really insane. All of these things. You've got the Manhattan Project, you've got Zorro Ranch, and you've got this Trementina base there as well, and there's other bases around it. And that's near Zorro Ranch, so that's the New Mexico side of it. We've not even got to the Epstein side, near the Epstein Island, the Virgin Islands, and the submarines type stuff that we were talking about at the start. I mean, this is vast. And again, don't look up. The flight logs are not going to tell you much at all. They're going to tell you who he wanted people to know who went to the island. Is there a way of finding out who went in that submarine and went to the island that way? Because I think you'll find that might be more interesting.
Might very well be. Let me tie all this in again to some of the things that I have been investigating. In Ginsberg's The Legends of the Jews, he captures a lot of the beliefs that are found in the Talmud and the Zohar, which relate to what Rich and I have been discussing. And one of those fundamental beliefs is that there are 7 divisions of hell, 7 layers of hell, one beneath the other. And they're listed. And that, I think, is what's behind these tunnels under the temple in Jerusalem and if there are tunnels, what's going on with the ranch in New Mexico and with the island, because I think that Epstein is trying to replicate the flat earth model of the Talmud. And the world to come may well be a subterranean world that they're trying to create with all these tunnels and bunkers and other things that people are building all over the world. And there's a lot of Kabbalistic lure around that.
Wow. Yeah.
This again describes how Cain was the product of the union of Eve with Satan. Wickedness came into the world with the first being born of woman, Cain, the oldest son of Adam. And it's important to remember that Eve is Adam. Eve is simply the female aspect that was separated out from Adam. And that created two seed lines. This dual seed line theory is very important. When God bestowed paradise upon the first pair of mankind, he warned them particularly against carnal intercourse with each other. But after the fall of Eve, Satan, in the guise of the serpent, and this is Lilith and Samael as the incubi and the succubus, impregnating Eve as the serpent in the Garden of Eden and creating this dual seed line, one half of which is, as David Icke says, the reptilians. And the Gnostics said that the reptilians were the Judahites, and the Judahites said that the reptilians were the Gentiles. The serpent approached her, and the fruit of their union was Cain, the ancestor of all the impious generations that were rebellious toward God and rose up against him. Cain's descent from Satan, who is the angel Samael, was revealed in this seraphic appearance. At his birth, the exclamation was wrung from Eve, "I have gotten a man through an angel of the Lord." And then there's something also extremely interesting in the Zohar. I'm going to read from the Pritzker translation. The Soncino translation is actually even better, but I wasn't able to find a PDF of that online. So this is the citation. And there's a story of the descendants of Cain. And they had two heads because they were born from both Satan and Eve. They have a dualistic nature. They have a holy nature and they have a satanic nature, and they live underground in an earth beneath the earth. And earth, the verse should read, but Arqua is one of those 7 earths below, the site of descendants of Cain. So that is the reptilians, the serpentine descendants of Cain. And David Icke has caught a lot of flack of that for decades. But that is precisely the Kabbalistic and the Judaic understanding of humanity, that there are dual seed lines, and one of them is what could be described as reptilian or described as serpentine. After he was banished from the face of the earth, he descended there, generating offspring. He blundered there, knowing nothing. It is a dual earth, dualized by darkness and light, by Eve and Satan. 2 officials rule there, one ruling darkness, the other light, inciting one another. When Cain descended there, they joined together, were completed as one, entirely befitting the offspring of Cain. And this all has sexual connotations with the womb and the birth of the Messiah, but I won't digress too much. So they have 2 heads, like 2 snakes, the holy serpent and the evil serpent of the Caduceus, that merged to become one snake in the Messianic era. But the one of light rules. The holy serpent is the higher, better, stronger serpent, prevailing, defeating the other. So those of darkness merged in those of light, and they became one. Those 2 officials are Aphrira and Kestamon, who resemble 6-winged holy angels. And I wonder if any of these victims of Epstein, if they were to see this imagery, it would spark something in their mind. I would love to interview them. One resembles an ox, the other an eagle, but when they join together, when they join, they are transformed into the image of a human being. In darkness, they turn into the image of a two-headed serpent, moving like a serpent, then swooping into the abyss. And in that painting from Maria Farmer, you see a hell of a lot of this imagery, and I wonder where she's getting it from. Bathing in the vast ocean, reaching the chains of Uzzah and Azael, they agitate and arouse them. These then leap into the dark mountains, thinking the Blessed Holy One, and there's lots of mountains in New Mexico, is about to call them to judgment. Those two officials swim the vast ocean, the abyss, and this again ties in with the submarine and Lilith fleeing to the seas and not being able to be drowned by the angels of the Lord, and fly through the night like Epstein's flights to Naamah, mother of demons, after whom the primordial deities strayed. They intend to approach her, but she leaps 60,000 parsangs, transmogrifying herself into countless figures, including, as you have pointed out, the blue butterfly, confronting human beings. And she also morphs herself into their sexual victims, these kids who were sent out to lure in men, so that they stray after her, so that they become ensnared. These two officials fly and roam throughout the world. That's Epstein and Maxwell. Then return to their abode, arousing those descendants of Cain to generate offspring by the spirit of evil impulses. So they are capturing the eggs and the semen of their victims, just as a succubus and an incubus do, to manufacture these post-human demons. And they want to turn the Gentile world into these demons of Lilith so that the Lord can then slay them 100 at a time. The heavens ruling there do not resemble these, nor does the earth bear seed and harvest through their power, as does this. And they only cycle once in many years of seasons. These gods who did not make heaven and earth shall perish from the higher earth of our world, so that they will not rule over it nor roam through it, causing humans to defile themselves through a nocturnal mishap. So they shall perish from the earth. Epstein committed suicide. The whole idea is that they're related to the Messiah, son of Joseph, who dies in his battles against the Gentiles. And at the same time, Samael and Lilith are also killed in this messianic struggle, which is depicted in the book of Revelation. So they shall perish from the earth and from under the heaven, fashioned by the name Alea. These, as explained, that is why this verse is written in Aramaic. It's written in Aramaic so that the angels won't be able to read it, because the angels speak the heavenly language of Hebrew. So that the celestial angels will not think it is being said about them and denounce us. So the mystery of Elah accords with what has been said. It constitutes a sacred word not to be exchanged for Aramaic. And in the previous passages of the Zohar, it goes on and explains much of that. So we have this model of the flat earth, which is taught in the Talmud. And the surface of the earth has beneath it the 7 levels of hell. And it has above it, the 7 levels of the heavens. And the idea is that in the messianic world, the world to come, they're actually going to live in the world beneath, that this to them is the perfected world to come. And everyone in the surface of the earth is to be killed off. So I believe they are constructing bunkers and underground worlds, and they may well launch a nuclear war, and these bunkers and underground worlds will serve as the new Noah's Ark to enable them to survive through the cleansing of the earth, in the same way that Noah's Ark enabled Noah and the animals to survive the great cleansing flood of the earth. But you see, the sun and the moon are apparent, but beneath this is the black sun. And the Nazis use the Viking image of the black sun as one of their symbols. And you see a lot of neo-Nazis who embrace all of this Talmudic mythologies. And again, the idea is that the earth is a flat surface that will flip in the Messianic age, and then this will become the ideal realm. So as above, so below is not to make the earth like heaven, but instead to make heaven like hell by flipping this over, and then this becomes hell, and this becomes heaven. So this is how it is depicted by those occultists, where you have the black sun beneath emitting its rays, and you have the sun and the moon spinning around. But in the end times, everything flips over. And you could also see in that painting from Maria Farmer, the tree of knowledge on top, and then on the bottom, I'm sorry, the tree of knowledge is the tree of death. And that's actually the branches, because eventually the leaves will rise to the top. And the roots are actually what is depicted as the tree of life, which is presently on top, but which will eventually, when everything reverses, spin around and become the top. So we have in the depiction of Shekinah, the female aspect of God, she is the earth, number 10 on this diagram of the tree of life. Malkut, which represents the center of the blue butterfly. But that is also Lilith, the female aspect of Satan. And in the highest levels of Kabbalah, they understand that all these are one and the same things, and we simply perceive aspects of them as being Shekinah and Lilith. And this is the breakdown of the Qliphothic tree of death, and the Lilith is on top. And this is the Sephirotic tree of life, and these are the two trees in the Garden of Eden. And Malkut is Shekinah, the female aspect of God. So these two things become one in the same thing on the earth, but the earth flips over and the two trees exchange places. And that is what Maxwell and Epstein were tasked with trying to bring about. And I believe that Epstein Island is a model of this depiction of the flat earth, and the dome above the flat earth is represented here, which also depicts the Dome of the Rock, which has to be destroyed in order for the temple to be built. You have the 7 blue layers of the 7 heavens. And then perhaps, as Rich has been pointing out, there may be tunnels underneath here, and there may be 7 layers of those tunnels, or they may bear 7 black stripes to indicate the world to come of hell, which they are trying to generate when they flip the world over. It also bore Lilith as this owl of Minerva, who's described in Hebrew editions of Isaiah chapter 34:14. And then this color blue represents you shall be ensnared. And Epstein and Maxwell were ensnaring people with blackmail. And the blue, which in Hebrew is techelet, also represents holiness to them and the protection of Shekinah's blue robes, which protects the Jewish people, which is depicted in the flag of Israel, in the tassels on their prayer shawl, and on the stripes of the prayer shawl, which mirror these stripes on Epstein's temple. But it also represents fire, and it represents sapphire. And the fire is what is utilized to exterminate all of the Gentile peoples, and the house of Jacob shall be a fire. That fire is blue fire, and it relates exactly to this blue butterfly, that they are setting up the world to be consumed by this fire. But the Judahites will not be consumed by the fire, because they have that guardian blue on their flag and on their prayer shawl, which shields them from the blue fire that will consume the earth above. And the house of Joseph a flame, and the house of Esau for stubble. Joseph represents Jacob, and the Judahites, and Esau represents Rome, the West, European peoples, Christians, and those who are going to be consumed and turned to stubble and ash. And they shall kindle in them and devour them, and there shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau. So it is meant to be a complete extermination. And all this ties in exactly with what Rich has been uncovering about these tunnels and about the fact that these people are marked with the blue butterfly of Lilith. And one of the major themes in Kabbalistic symbolism is that the last gradation, Malkut, is a mythical personification of the people of Israel. So it has that holy aspect in their eyes. And that her biography, her being Malkut, being Shekhinah, the female aspect of God, as well as the earth, as Mother Earth, the goddess, Gaia in the Greek system, not only represents, but also protects the Israelites from possible harm, which is why they put it on their flag and their prayer shawl in their temple, on the part of surrounding non-Jews. So it's a form of concealing and hiding things that are being done against non-Jews with this blue that hides everything. And accordingly, the myth of the Tekhelet cloth of Malkut and the dye to make this cloth is made out of sea snails. It's a very special dye derived from the sea, from the primordial waters of chaos, of Malkut against the evil gaze of the evil forces. So it's meant to hide and to keep people from seeing what's happening. Was also applied on a national level. That is the covering of the Jews, the blue robe of Shekinah, particularly by blue objects, serves as protection from what is believed to be a danger from the nation of non-Jews who are sometimes considered in Kabbalistic texts as earthly manifestations of the evil forces. They're seen that way because they are depicted as if the seed line of Cain, as I've shown. This covering resembles the metaphor of being under the wings of Shekinah, the divine presence. So that is one of the reasons I believe these girls were tattooed with blue butterflies and masked with this image to keep Gentiles from figuring out what was going on. And I'm just going to run through these briefly. People can pause the video to take a look at them if they want to read through it. Oops, let's see. Sorry, Rich.
You're right.
Seems that they wanted to cover you in blue.
Yeah, no, I feel like I fell off the chair. Just disappeared. I mean, I've been watching your videos. I have to watch them over and over again to just even get my head around some of this stuff. But it all comes back to it, and it's just never ending as well, isn't it? It's just never ending. Like stuff jumps back in. Like you talked about the blue, and then Michael Jackson wrote a song called "The Blue Gangster," and that just popped up in my head. I'm like, well, I wonder what that song was about. And then I realize.
Well, it's important to note that he was handled by Chabad agents, and that Chabad has been a big part of all of what's been going on with all of this.
And then with the Epstein list or names coming out, they throw his name in the middle there, but then you realize he didn't actually, only met him briefly once in a way before he was convicted. So he's been like a sacrificial lamb for them for years. But it just goes on, doesn't it? And not just the New Mexico, where I think most of the actual this transhumanist stuff was going on, but the Epstein Island and the submarine stuff. I just want to point out. And this is why I like what we do, because I can point out what is happening in the physical world, but then you to point out the fact that these have far more esoteric meanings. So this was the next one. So this was number 4. So there's land on. So this land was once owned by James Biden, obviously the brother of Joe Biden, and this was called Water Island. So Water Island is just near Epstein Island. It's about, if I remember rightly, 5.2 miles away from it, on a place called St. Thomas Island. So Thomas Island, I believe, is the big island. Water Island is the smaller part, and this is where they built it was purchased by the US in 1944 when it was purchased for $10,000. So obviously nothing. to protect the submarine base on St. Thomas Island. So sorry, I got it the wrong way around. So the Water Island's the big island. St. Thomas Island is just a little bit off of it, but that's what it was purchased to protect. Now I've looked into pictures of that underground submarine base, and you can go into there. I haven't got them up there, but you can have a look at it, and it's got spray paint everywhere, some very weird spray paint, some tunnels underneath it, and I believe that's where people would go to be taken to from the mainland or the main island to Epstein Island without people knowing, because they're all looking at the flight logs. So have a look at St. Thomas
now the light goes on. Now I understand why you're saying don't look to the waters above in the firmament. Look to the abyss of the sea below, because they are hiding probably some of the most scariest people who are most important to them, how they were transported to the island via this submarine. And it all fits in with this idea of keeping everything hidden under blue, under the blue seas. They were able to shuttle these people over to the island, then record them in pedophilic acts. And then they got them. They completely own them for the rest of their lives, and they can utilize them to become involved in politics and other things, to do whatever it is they are instructed to do.
Absolutely, and the names are there, but the names that you're getting are the names of the aeroplane, the flight logs. It's not the flight logs I want to know about. It's who went across there in these submarines. That's where I think it. So here is He's not a great photo, but the best one I could find. Ghislaine Maxwell has a submarine license. As I said earlier, the only person I've seen on that submarine in pictures is Stephen Hawkins. Again, Stephen Hawkins probably didn't. You can't tell if he wanted to go on there or not. Obviously, being the condition he's in. But it's very interesting that Stephen Hawkins was on the island. Obviously, he's a scientist and all of this stuff, so he would have. Why were scientists on there? And this is something that Juliet Bryant kept wanting to know about. I believe maybe she knows more than she's saying at the moment, but why were scientists on there? And then you look into some of the other stuff, the other scientists that were there. So if we go down to
if I remember correctly, if I may interject, Maxwell, Robert Maxwell, the father of Ghislaine Maxwell, was a Mossad agent, but he owned a lot of physics journals.
Really?
And he was heavily involved in publication and the publication of physics journals, and that would be of tremendous advantage to the Mossad, because anyone with a new idea would submit their articles to be peer-reviewed and published in these journals, so they would have advanced knowledge of new scientific and technological breakthroughs. And they could also exclude articles, or they could get rid of scientists, or do whatever it is they wanted to do. And that may well tie in to why Stephen Hawking got ensnared in all of this. Stephen Hawking was involved with something that I was involved with back in the early 2000s. I and one of the greatest physicists of our time, Professor Dr. Friedvard Winterberg, exposed the fact that Albert Einstein had plagiarized the generally covariant field equations of the general theory of relativity from David Hilbert. And there was a big scandal that we generated because there was an article published in the journal Science claiming that that wasn't true, that Einstein had them first. But in that article, they didn't reveal the fact that their evidence had been tampered with. And the manuscripts that they used were doctored and mutilated in such a way as to remove the very equations from a set of printer's proofs of Hilbert's paper that they were claiming he didn't know. But they said he didn't know because they weren't in the paper, but they didn't reveal the fact that they had been manually cut out and exculpated from the paper. And Stephen Hawking started to come out and support what Professor Friedvard Winterberg and I were doing to expose this fact, that it was indeed Hilbert who first derived the perfective form of the general theory of relativity, and that Albert Einstein, and we proved it, plagiarized it directly from Hilbert. And that may have been one of the reasons they wanted to gain leverage on Stephen Hawking. I would be very interested to find out the dates of when he was ensnared in all of this, because I suspect it may well have been right around that time. I'm sorry for interjecting all this, which may be of interest only to me, but it fits perfectly with so much of what I've been working on my entire life that I just want to get it out and get it on the record. Let's get back to your work and these slides. What's the significance of the crucifix?
So the crucifix, that's one of the pictures from the Zorro Ranch. This is a Juliet Bryant's own personal pictures. She, I believe that's Zorro Ranch where she took this one. I could be wrong. It could be the island, but I believe that's Zorro Ranch. She took loads of photos that she sent me, and I've used and going to use in future videos of what she saw on both the ranch and Epstein Island to prove that she was actually there. So it's not disputed she wasn't there. She's had payouts as well, I believe. So it's not disputed she was there. Everybody knows that she was part of it.
So this proves that she was there because nobody else could have taken these pictures but her that are in her possession.
No, and you've seen.
If I may interject, what this was at his ranch?
I believe that one is at this ranch, but someone might. It's either the ranch or the island. I believe this is the ranch.
What a Kabbalist sees when he looks at this is the serpent on the tree of knowledge, Jesus Christ representing that serpent, Samael, luring in Adam and Eve with the knowledge to consume the forbidden fruit of the apple of the knowledge of good and evil, which is the knowledge that they are polar opposites, male and female. So he is tempting them with that fruit to become Christians, and these are symbolic of Adam and Eve, and Jesus is symbolic of the serpent on the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And then beneath it, you have that underworld, which eventually will flip. Everything will flip. You often see depictions of Peter and others on an upside down crucifix, anticipating the world to come when everything rotates.
Right, so that makes sense then of Elon Musk wearing the upside down crucifix on his Halloween costume, where he's clearly dressed as the kind of king of Mars. That would make sense that why it's upside down there then. People are really following him in the alternative at the media, like Alex Jones. They are jumping on that bus at the moment, which is worrying. But that makes sense.
And David Icke has been hitting that very hard and exposing how that that the potential dangers of all that.
Exactly.
And now we have some of your wonderful insights.
So this is the Blue Butterfly. Obviously, this is the front cover of Juliet's diary. This diary has been picked up by the FBI and sent back to her. She says that she put this on there before. Whether it's hard to know. Obviously, the stripe below and above probably means something. I'm assuming that's something to do with the waters above and waters below, but they're not blue. But I think everything possibly means something. But there's the blue butterfly there.
Well, it looks like the depiction of the Israeli flag, where you have from the Nile to the Euphrates, but also representing the waters of the firmament above in Genesis, and then the waters of the abyss below.
Absolutely. So that's the front.
It would be interesting. This just occurred to me. We should take this picture and invert it in Photoshop to get the opposite colors out of all this, and see what it produces.
Absolutely. Yes, let's absolutely do that. So that's Juliet Bryant's one. So this is the next one. So then you see the blue eyes, as you've been saying, the blue eyes of protection or the evil eye, depending on which way you're coming from. And this it's a tattoo there. So
it's actually it is protection against the evil eye, but it is also a form of ensnarement. So their beautiful blue eyes are being utilized to ensnare people in their blackmail honeypot trap. And you have two eyes which are blue. One represents the blue of the firmament of the sky, and the other represents the blue of the seas of primordial chaos. The Leviathan swims in those seas, so Samael and Lilith are both tied to the sea in that way. The dye to make the colors for the prayer shawl and the Israeli flag are made from a blue sea snail that exists in the waters. So it's all tied into that.
it's incredible how intricate this is, isn't it? So that's Julia Bryant's diary.
And consistent. What blows my mind is
Yeah.
the consistency of it. How
Absolutely.
rigidly they are adhering to the script that these plans have been in existence for thousands of years. I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, you're absolutely fine. You know far more about this, as I'm here to learn as well. The thing that interested me is that Sarah has a tattoo on her. So she was one of the victims, or the survivors. Sarah on there, but on her other arm, it looks like, and I've only seen it through a angle, but it looks like the symbol for Lilith, which is the cross, I believe, with the moon on the top. But I can't see the moon on the picture, so I can't confirm that. And obviously Virginia there, she uses the blue butterfly for her logo for her trust. So they're all
Really?
continuously using this.
Wasn't there also something with, something that Epstein set up
Yep.
to funnel monies?
That's the Butterfly Trust, yeah, through I believe it was JP Morgan. It could have been, I think it was JP Morgan. We have to check that. The Butterfly Trust was where the funds were going through to hide this. Yes,
the Butterfly Trust, whose beneficiaries a number of women with Eastern European surnames.
That's it. So that's where all the payments were going through the Butterfly Trust. I mean, come on, guys, this is so open, and once you understand the coding of it, it's quite clear. So that was,
and there has been a white slave trade through Ukraine down to Israel for many years, where they were taking young girls, and that may have been a part of what inspired everything that Epstein was doing. But it was concurrent with everything that Epstein was doing. They were enslaving beautiful young women from the Ukraine, bringing them down to Israel and using them in brothels.
Wow. And we can see that even you go on YouTube and they try and sell you a Ukrainian young girl if you want one. I mean, they put the adverts on YouTube. So this is the foundation. So this is Epstein's. VI is supposed to stand for Virgin Islands. I mean, whether they look, it's in Roman numerals, so I question that. So the Jeffrey Epstein VI Foundation.
Well, it's the Roman numeral 6, which is the number of the serpent, Vav.
Exactly.
The letter Vav.
Yep, exactly. So I don't believe that stands for Virgin Islands, but
well, it's interesting. I'm again. Please forgive me for pausing, but this is also fascinating.
No, you're absolutely fine.
By utilizing Roman numerals, they are letting everyone know that this is gematria, because Latin, like Hebrew, the letters are also numbers, and that's the same thing in Hebrew. By starting it with the letter V, it indicates in Hebrew V for Vav, as in the number 6. So all of this fits perfectly as being the gematria of Latin and being the gematria of Hebrew.
Right, okay. See, it's just so in-depth, isn't it? So the Epstein Foundation, Epstein 6 Foundation, I would say, this was his foundation for basically funneling money into scientists and transhumanism. Not many people really know much about this. The foundation is based on St. Thomas in Virgin Islands, which is the island I was talking about earlier. So do you know what I mean? It's there for you. So if we go to the next one, so this is what I found really interesting when we're coming to, well, all of it's interesting, but this guy, George Church, he's openly talked about being funded via the Epstein Foundation that we just spoke about, and he regrets taking money from Epstein. He's not hiding it. It says nothing new, but George Church is a guy who looks into basically DNA manipulation, that sort of thing. He's not openly a transhumanist, but he does work with people who are openly transhumanist. So George Church is one benefactor. George Church collaborated with transhumanist James Clement of the Super Centenarian Research Study. Now, this is Super Centenarian, guys. If you don't know, it's basically studying people that lived a long time. And obviously, this will come into the whole mythology of immortality. These are the people that are being funded through these through the Epstein money. This is transhumanism, and it fits in again.
How does this tie into Musk?
This ties into Musk. How would that tie into Musk? Not directly. Musk has been obviously met with Epstein, I believe, and he said that he would never take advice off him. I think Musk is pretty clever at
well, I didn't mean to tie Musk with Epstein, but Musk with transhumanism. Are there any common goals? Why is Musk being involved with transhumanism? Is what my understanding is that it was Neuralink trying to create some kind of world in which the brain was integrated with silicon circuitry or whatever kind of circuitry that they want to implement so that the mind can tap into a computer as its resources. But it can also potentially be reversed, whereas the mind could be programmed through this Neuralink network. I haven't pursued it very much. I don't know if you have or not.
Yeah, it's exactly. I mean, he's putting up the Starlink network and the Neuralink network. He's obviously with Netanyahu not too long ago over there, getting his next kind of level of probably orders. What I would say was exactly what you said there. He's providing the technology side of this frame, this kind of like, as you talk about the grid over the earth, and he's going to flip that kind of frame to keep people surveilled while they're here. Part of it is transhumanism. Obviously, he talks about the dangers of AI, artificial intelligence, whilst contributing to it, and the fact that we need to become human plus, human 2.0, to battle it, like almost in a Transformers type way, or a what's that the famous film where he comes back to Arnold Schwarzenegger. Can't remember what's the film called. Terminator. It's a Terminator side situation. He wants to upgrade us and take us off to Mars. He doesn't think we should be sedentary. We should live on Mars. Obviously, that's symbolic there. He wants to colonize Mars. There's a whole area with von Braun where the guy who colonized Mars in his book, Project Mars or Mars Project, was called Elon. The guy
von Braun was friends with Friedwald Wienerberg, and that professor that I had discussed, and he helped to support Werner von Braun and protect his reputation. And he was also involved with Arthur Rudolph and the whole rocketry program. So again, to me, this is all incredibly fascinating. Werner von Braun wrote a book that I'm sure you're familiar with, where he talked about the idea of setting up Mars as a base for further exploration, which is what Musk is following up on. And I believe either you or Mr. Ike or both have commented, wasn't Elon Musk one of the names of the character?
Yeah, the character that colonized or took all the people to Mars to colonize it. It was called Elon.
Isn't that incredible? And then there's to go off on an even wilder tangent, there was a book written, I think, early in the 20th century, where there was some character. What's the name of Trump's son?
Baron Trump. Yep. The
Baron
Adventures
Trump.
of
What?
Baron Trump. Yes.
There you go.
Yep. Baron Trump. The Adventures of Baron Trump. I mean, guys, you can't. If time travel isn't possible, how they're doing this, I don't know. The Baron Trump.
I think it's
novels,
working the other way. I think they're following the script that they've generated.
Yeah, I mean,
but in terms of Mars is the 5th planet on the Sephirotic Tree of Life. It is Gavura. It is Din. It is the seat of severity, punishment, accusation, and temptation. It is the red planet, red as in the Edomites, and it is where Samael, Satan, lives. So it's kind of weird that Elon Musk dresses up as the Antichrist in a red suit and wants to transplant people to the planet Mars. And all of this is part of the emanation theories, the Neoplatonistic and Gnostic theories, that the human soul first descended from the Godhead across the 7 planets down to the earth, and that it has to engage in a return and epistrophe by then traveling back up the 7 planets to return to God. So what they are doing is they are interpreting all of this emanation theory literally, and they actually want to physically transport human beings back out across these planets. It's all so psychotic. And as others have been pointing out, why not simply secure the safety of the earth instead of poisoning the earth to create an incentive to drive people away from the earth? If we can't maintain a sustainable environment on the earth, what chance do we have anywhere else? And since we have evolved to be creatures upon the earth, isn't it much better to simply safeguard ourselves and the earth rather than trying to destroy the earth so that we then have an incentive to escape somewhere else and then destroy that somewhere else?
My thought on that is that he's trying to kind of subliminally teach people is not the right word. Entrain people to think that this place is indoctrinate is the word. Yeah, indoctrinate people to think that this place is done and leave it, and then go somewhere else. And then who would we leave it to? Well, we'll leave the world to come to these Kabbalists, and I believe that's kind of part of it.
It's a variation of the rapture theory. What Elon Musk is doing, as you describe, is precisely the conception of rapturing people away from the earth so that they don't suffer the tribulation of the destruction of the earth. But that tribulation of the destruction of the earth, the top people are going to be in their bunkers in their new Noah's Ark and are going to survive it, and they're going to inherit the earth. And this supposed rapture or deportation to Mars is simply going to be our extermination. And I think you're spot on. That's a wonderful insight. And I think that's what's behind the whole agenda, is to condition us to have the hope that our only hope is to escape our earthly life, which is the whole message of Christianity, the whole message of Gnosticism, and to venture forth into these realms of the demons, as David Icke talks about as the archons. These archons live on each of these planets in the mythology of Gnosticism, and their goal is to destroy human beings as they try to ascend and cross back over the planets. And they also try to obstruct the prayers of human beings to the Godhead. So what it all is it's setting us up to step into this trap of being completely annihilated and exterminated, and to view our salvation and our only hope as that which is to bring about our complete extermination. And that's exactly why they're trying to teach people that blue is a color that safeguards them, but blue is a color that safeguards the enemy. Blue, in terms of us, in terms of the non-Judahite world, is a consuming fire that completely destroys us. And that's one of the things that I love about what you're doing, Rich, is that you are creating a case study that explains everything that's been going on for thousands of years. And it's not really a metaphor, it's an example of what this entire plan is and how it's constructed and how it is implemented and carried out. And if people can understand with what is going on with Epstein and with Maxwell, that then becomes a bridge that they can cross to understanding what the full agenda is and every aspect of it. And it makes such a wonderful case study because it provides concrete examples that people can view and latch on to comprehend all of this more esoteric history and tradition and religion and occultism and mythology behind all of it. And this is all a part of Kabbalah. There are different aspects of Kabbalah. And what the Epstein pedophile ring was doing is the practical magic of Kabbalah, implementing this in the physical world. And then the religious aspect, the mysticism, the secret Kabbalah, the hidden Kabbalah, is all of the theory behind it, which is understood to simply be symbolic, in the same way the Neoplatonists said that all the gods that they were describing were simply symbols of how nature itself works. And the Kabbalists picked up from Spinoza and others this idea of a pantheistic world, and that all this Kabbalistic mythology is simply a metaphor to how nature operates that they then implement through practical magic. And their goal is to completely exterminate all non-Judahite humanity. So they have created this whole religious mythology to provide a justification for it, which scapegoats those whom they want to exterminate by calling them this satanic seed line. And then the Gnostics flipped it on them and said that they were the satanic seed line. And the only resolution that any of these systems have is a war of extermination in which one side will triumph and the other side will be completely eliminated. And I've listed Bible verse after Bible verse, the Midrash, the Talmud, the Kabbalah, all of them demand complete extermination of the seed line of Cain. And that's where I think David Icke's work can gain credibility and be pushed into the mainstream for exposing the idea that the fundamental agenda behind this is wiping out one type of humanity so that another type of humanity can prevail and exist in this world to come. Olam haba. And I've been studying this all my life, and almost every day I come across new passages which expressly state that the side of Esau has to be completely eliminated. So what Rich is doing is he is giving us concrete case study examples of the danger that we're in and the processes that are being utilized to subvert. All of this, again, goes to the Kabbalah and the story of Jacob, how Jacob tricks Esau into killing himself off. And this idea of traveling to Mars that Musk is utilizing, which comes from Werner von Braun, is a trap. It is a trap to set us up to view this as the rapture that's going to save us, when in fact it is setting us up to be wiped out.
Yeah, and if you want any more conversation, who else was shooting rockets into the moon and promising not too long ago free trips on a rocket if you did this and you did that? It was Richard Branson. Richard Branson, obviously, very much involved in all of this as well, and the Virgin Islands. So, guys, it's absolutely there. All I'm
Wasn't
doing
is his aircraft enterprise called Virgin Air or something?
Yeah. Virgin Atlantic, I believe.
Virgin Atlantic, yeah.
Yeah, everything was called his Virgin Records. And he was actually coming from a fairly wealthy family, and in the 1970s, he got himself in a lot of trouble for importing black label records. And his mum and dad bailed him out for over £680,000, I believe, in those days, in the 70s. So he was allowed out, and I think he's been controlled since then, very much so. He has... Obviously.
Do you know anything about Jimmy Savile and his involvement with the Royals?
Well, I know that he was he was introduced to the Royals by Lord Mountbatten, who was well known to be a child abuser. He was very much in the middle of Diana and Charles and they in there. He said he was like sorting their marriage out. Obviously he wasn't. He was controlling.
Jimmy Savile was involved?
Yeah, Jimmy Savile was involved with Charles and Diana. Diana hated him. Diana actually phoned, because she was quite close to Michael Jackson in very, very strange ways. They met, and
Jimmy Savile was close to Michael Jackson?
No, Diana.
Diana. Oh, okay.
So she said that to him, that Jimmy Savile was absolutely creepy. She creeped him out. Obviously, she was brought up on Sandringham Estate, so she was raised blonde hair, blue eyes, to be protection for this racket and to produce these Antichrist type children, which we know that comes through things like Rosemary's Baby and all of that kind of splicing.
The Shabbataians used to engage in orgies in preparation for producing the Messiah, son of Joseph, the Antichrist.
Well, the Rothschilds and that are well known for them sort of pies. I mean, that's not hidden, eyes wide shut. Kubrick basically he filmed that in a Rothschild mansion, I believe, as well. So I mean, he
and Rabbi Marvin Antelman, who excommunicated Henry Kissinger from the Jewish Church, exposed a lot of this Shabbataian degeneracy. And
And
it
that goes
carried
straight
over to
into
the Hasidics, who were condemned by the Gaon of Vilna, by the Mitnagdim, for all of the orgiastic rituals and magic rituals that they engage in, and that produced the Satmar Hasidim, and it produced Chabad Lubavitch. But I don't want to digress too much.
No, it's that's all related. This is the thing, that it is all related, and
It
coming
is all
back to
related.
it is
And
all
they
related.
pretend to form sides. But what they're doing by creating these sides is creating a series of events so that it fulfills the script. They simply have everything planned out, but it has to come in phases. And what they're portraying as sides are phases of this. You'll see how they have very right-wing people who fulfill the Zionist agenda, and then they have left-wing people who fulfill the communist agenda, and it becomes a ladder that just ratchets on top of each other. So they're not really sides, they're aspects of the same agenda and phases of that same agenda. And by disappointing people when one side takes over and betrays, you then get an even more radical swing of the pendulum to the other side, and the oscillations become increasingly intense and begin to resonate with other oscillations, and it's all reverberating into our destruction.
It's a chaos magic.
Absolutely, yes. And again, we got to do another show. We should do a show on Alexander Dugin and his chaos magic of the Leviathan and the Behemoth, because you're a Brit and I'm an American, and we are the evil Atlanticis that are going to be destroyed by the Behemoth. And that actually has a lot to do with, we should also do a decoding video of Maria Farmer's painting. And if you could ever arrange an interview with her, do Juliet Bryant and the other victims correspond with each other or keep in touch, or does it freak them out to?
I believe, I believe they do. I think she speaks to the one with the tattoo. Escapes my name now. Tattoo on her arm. I think she speaks to her quite a bit. But they do from time to time. I think Juliet, because she's so harmed by all this, kind of gets maybe shunned out a little bit, and she's willing to talk about things at this level. The first time she spoke about waking up on a lab table was on my show, and also she spoke about Epstein shape-shifting whilst he was raping her.
So she is one of the ones who was physically raped. Maria Farmer, she was, my recollection is she was not raped. She was simply used to groom others and things like that.
I'm not sure. I think she was abused, but I'm not sure. I'll have to check that out. The names escape me. We've got so much information in our heads. But I know that, yeah, Juliet definitely was many times, and the lady with the tattoo on her arm, she was many times as well. Again, what Juliet said is really, really fascinating, and I think this Epstein thing is the way to go, because it's the gateway to get to all of this stuff. But it is all underneath. But what she says is that she never saw any women being trafficked to other men. Juliet, she says they were strictly for her, Epstein or a couple of his mates, but mostly it was him. It wasn't about trafficking girls, and I think that's been something we've been kind of put on to trying to go down a dead end there. I think this is far more about what's going on under the island, the transhumanist, the submarines, and going on underneath Zorro Ranch, connecting to these other bases in New Mexico, and very much to do with DNA, changing the human genome. And it's absolutely that side of things, the trafficking side of things, that's about compromat. That's about, as you say, putting politicians in places where they need them, people in places where they need them, and controlling them. But that's the surface level. She said she never saw any women being trafficked. It was all about just basically favors to compromise, people they wanted to compromise. But it wasn't about trafficking women. It's what's going on under the island. Again, it's don't look up. It's all underneath the surface. And I believe this Epstein case, if we forget about the flight logs for a while and look at who was going in the submarines, look at that part of it, I think you're going to find that there's a whole different story here. And Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell are not that worried. I don't think Epstein's dead myself, but they're not that worried if you're looking at the flight logs. They're not that worried if you're talking about trafficking girls and trafficking women, because
Because
it
that
seems
does
to be
harm to
something
the
else.
West. That actually helps their agenda by making us distrust our government and turn against our government. It also has the benefit of driving Jewish people in the West towards the behemoth, embracing Soviet Russia and communist China as if their salvation. So they're always going to reap every benefit that they can out of everything that they do. And this is new to me, what you're talking about, that the bigger, deeper thing that they're creating a diversion and a distraction from, which is what the blue is supposed to do, is that they were engaged in scientific research, probably technological espionage. And what is it that they were going to try to achieve through this espionage and through scientific research? And you're saying that this was all centered around transhumanism, genetic research, I would say creating 600,000 androgynous, immortal, God image, chimera beings, but also I suspect to create these transhuman demons who are soulless and who will populate this hell that they want to create out of the earth. They may also have been involved. New Mexico would be a good place for it too, in terms of weather engineering and geoengineering and research into all of that. Have these girls ever talked about any foreign actors, Chinese people from Russia? None of that, right? It was all directed, targeted at the U.S.
Yes,
and primarily the Atlanticist, the U.S. and Great Britain.
It's a good point. And didn't Putin come out and openly talk about the West being full of paedophilia and child trafficking and Satanism? But he didn't talk about it going on in his own backyard.
Absolutely, yes. That's one of the ways that they use to create self-hatred among people in the West, is to stigmatize the West. I'm not going to use their expression, but it's GH. And they, well, at the same time, their communist agents in the West are the ones who are promoting all of that as a targeted agenda. And it fits in with the androgyny agenda, but it also fits in with the idea of creating self-loathing in traditionalist Westerners, who then look to Putin as if their salvation, but the salvation comes about through their extermination. It's the same process of Christianity, that you get saved by dying and that you inherit a heavenly kingdom, but leave the earthly kingdom to the Judahites. It's the same idea of this rapture, that they're going to avoid the tribulation that they're encouraging happen to everyone else, but they get it by going to heaven, which means that they get killed first.
Yeah, and if you
it's
look
all a series of traps.
Gaza with the clearing, the ethnic cleansing and clearing Gaza, well, they just want to do that to the entire planet. They want you to just disappear off into your fake rapture and leave this place for themselves. And I completely agree. That's exactly what it is. And I'd like to just say that, like, I'm not saying that that trafficking didn't happen a bit. I'm not saying that these women are lying. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that that's not the full story, and I don't think that was any way near the emphasis of what they actually were doing. And I think people just go extremes. They're going to say, okay, you're saying it's all about this, so it can't be about that. And I'll say that happened, but not to the extreme as what we're trying to show. But it's actually far more about this other stuff that's going on under the islands and under Zora Ranch and under places like Dulce Base and under places like this Scientology base that's only hundreds of miles away. I mean, that's what you really need to be looking at, in my opinion. Doesn't mean the other stuff isn't going on top. It just means that you're getting 5% of the story with that.
Yeah, I'm sure it was synergistic. that the politicians that they control could then be used to fund and direct research, which would be beneficial to them, and also could be used to cover up any exposure of what was being done. A lot of that research that was taking place in Arizona and New Mexico and California was being spied upon by the Chinese, and the American government was aware of it and did nothing to stop it and helped to facilitate it. And a lot of the Chinese hypersonic technology and their aircraft and missile technology, it was the American government helped them to rip it off from American research. And certainly having compromised people in positions of power in the media and the American government would help to facilitate the inability of whistleblowers to ever expose what was going on and to get it out to the public. Where can people get a hold of your work? And do you have websites and other places you would like to direct people so that they can learn more about this? And I really want to encourage people to see your interviews with Juliette Bryant, because it is groundbreaking. What you're doing, no one else has done. She obviously trusts you and has good taste. And I think more is going to come out, and you're going to be the venue where this is going to flow out of, so that anybody who wants to be on the cutting edge of this research and knowledge, which is vital to our survival, how can they find you?
They can find those interviews. So there'll be a new one out this Wednesday coming. Though that first interview's out on iconic.com. All my interviews for Classified, and my previous show on their deep dive, which was similar but far more kind of political. This one goes far deeper into the occult stuff. So I've got interviews with yourself on there as well. Lots of the people that you would kind of look to, but we go further in terms of looking at the occult and asking questions that most people will just stay at the political level. So iconic.com, and you can find me at WTAF Rich on Twitter or X at the moment. And they're the two main places at the moment. And I appreciate you having me on and trusting me to bring this information forward, because I'm reading your books and your work all the time, and it's an honor to even sort of be part of this, because I can see what is happening here, and also I'm not afraid to, in a sense, sound stupid and look into these things and be I'm way beyond that. I'm like, this is happening, and even if it's not, oh well, that's what I thought was right. And look at it, look at everything we're saying, and at least investigate it. And please do not let go of this Epstein thing in terms of these submarines and this stuff underneath there, because that's where you're going to find some real answers. And if it turns out to be nothing, fantastic, but I don't think it's going to be.
Well, I greatly admired your self-confidence and your courage in going out on a limb and exploring things that other people aren't touching. And I want to reemphasize your point that everything that's being said about the pedophilia and all of that is very important and needs to be studied. But then you have to go beyond that and see what it is that they are trying to distract you from and keep hidden from you. That is also at least as important, and perhaps even more important. And who are the personalities that were being involved in that? And I think you have a unique perspective on directing people to look into who was going on those submarines. It wasn't just, what would they call that plane? The Lolita Express?
Yeah, the Lolita Express, which again, obviously we know the Lolita connotations to the child abuse there. Anyway, that film.
Well, we can call the submarine the Lilith Express.
Yeah. Forget it. I don't know if it was
come
blue.
Up with something.
I think it was grey, but maybe it's blue. I mean, guys, I just want to add this before I go. As an estimated 460,000 children go missing every year in the United States. If that's what's happening here, then this needs to stop, and this could be the gateway down to realising where some of those 460,000 poor souls are disappearing to, because something's going on here.
And I also think we need to investigate why all this subterranean stuff is going on, and what they anticipate and what they're going to be utilizing this subterranean and submersibles in the ocean. What are they planning, and how are we going to survive it? I think the only way we're going to survive it is to keep it from happening. And Rich is a great journalist exposing all this. I want to thank you so much for coming on. This has been a wonderful interview, not an interview, a shared exploration and joint research project that we're engaging in, and we're going to have a lot more to come. So stay tuned. We're only scratching the surface. A lot of this is deeply esoteric, and it would take hours and hours to explain it. Rich has a lot of research that is behind all of this, and it all can't come out at once. So please stay tuned. I want to thank you again, Rich. You can find him at Iconic. That is ICKONIC.com, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So go and subscribe at Iconic, and definitely watch his interviews with Juliet Bryant. I want to thank everyone for watching. I want to thank all of the wonderful people who have been donating to keep this going. And I'll see you all next time. Thank you so much, Richard.
Thank you.